The San Francisco 49ers travel to Tampa Bay to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I saw, obviously we're doing this on Wednesday, Christian McCaffrey could be involved in the offense in this game. We will see. The window is open for him to be activated. We'll see if he is actually in the lineup for this one. Obviously, I think that could be a little bit of a plus factor. Don't mean to spoil it if that is yours, but what's your matchup that matters first before we get to that?
Yeah, it's something that the Bucs just are going to need to do well and just haven't so far since Mike and Chris went down. We know that Mike Evans got back on the practice field on Wednesday, worked out with trainers. He's on track to come back after the bye week, but that does not factor into this game.
Right.
So get this rushing offense going. I mean, we've seen a vast improvement overall in the Tampa Bay's rushing offense from years past, specifically. They're top 10 right now in rushing, but that did not happen. That did not come to fruition against the Kansas City Chiefs. They failed to crack 100 yards rushing on the ground. And that is something that, again, you need when you're playing these like high caliber opponents, when you're going against a defense like San Francisco's. I really need this offense to be as multidimensional as possible. And without your top two receivers, I mean, I know how much, like, listen, this is not K-Dot erasure. I appreciate everything that K-Dot has been able to do so far in those guys' absence. He came in huge for Baker Mayfield against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's going to need to continue, but rely on the three-headed monster that you have in your offensive backfield. Now, San Francisco isn't going to make it easy. They're top 10 in rushing defense, but I really do think that in order for the Bucs to be competitive in this game, to potentially win this game, which could matter a whole lot when you're talking about a fellow NFC opponent,
right?
You need to get things going on the ground. Please, guys.
I think that how the Bucs are going to play Brock Purdy is very intriguing in this game because the Bucs by nature with Todd Bowles are a team that likes to blitz a lot. It is funny watching these two in Brian Flores and Todd Bowles just be number one and number two in the NFL at total blitzes called. Like they just love it. Right now, Brian Flores has a 2-play lead on Todd Bowles.
Okay.
How many blitzes that they have called, but they are the number one and number two team in the NFL. It is part of their defensive style. It is what they like to do.
Right.
Now, an interesting wrinkle into that is that the last 3 weeks that we have had here have been the lowest blitz counts from the Buccaneers so far this season. So what are we doing here? Are we turning over a new leaf? This is a new Todd Bowles. What are we doing? So though they are still number two in the NFL at total blitzes called, they aren't doing it as much as they were at the early parts of the season or as much as Todd Bowles typically does. Now, it's interesting for this game in particular, because if we turn back the clock to earlier this season, when the San Francisco 49ers went to Minnesota and had to play Brian Flores blitzed the crap out of him. It was the most blitzes that Brock Purdy faced in a single game, and that was the game that Brock Purdy had a 48.4 passing grade, 2 turnover-worthy plays against the blitz, 3 turnover-worthy plays overall, and it was the game where Purdy went up to Brian Flores and patted him on the shoulder and was just like, "Scheme is crazy, man." Like he had no idea what was coming at him at any time. Do the Bucs switch things up this week and get back to that heavy blitz format, knowing that the last 3 weeks they have done it less than they normally do? So I think there was a little bit of a trend going on over these last 3 weeks. Do they break it here against Purdy? Does Todd Bowles believe that the success against Purdy will come with blitzing more? I'm really intrigued to see if that's the case, because normally when you blitz Brock Purdy, he's not that bad. It was really just that game. It was that volume. It was that type of blitzing that Flores was throwing at him that really hurt him. He's had some good games against the blitz even this season. So it's not like he's bad no matter what. If you blitz him, it's got to be a good game plan incorporating the blitz. Todd Bowles is willing to do it. Yeah. But that to me is a big time matchup that matters, of how much Todd Bowles is going to be willing to blitz him, and then what Purdy looks like against the blitz in this game. What about a plus factor for you?
Yeah, I appreciate that call out, especially because if you look at what Brian Flores and how he blitzes, it's all of these certain like simulated pressures and then just different pressures where you're getting DBs involved, you're getting linebackers, like off-ball linebackers involved. Like the blitz is coming from areas you don't expect it, and that is what threw Brock Purdy off so badly. And it's something that Todd Bowles is absolutely capable of too. And I think when you talk about the fact that over the last 3 weeks, the Bucs haven't blitzed as much, I think you can directly attribute that to the health of Kalijah Cansey and Vita Vea now on that interior, and then being able to get pressure themselves in a four-man rush. And that's ideally how you want to operate, I think, in this defense that stays in its flex package so much, where you do have those four-man fronts. If you can get pressure from Vita Vea, who already has 5 sacks on the season, by the way, his high is 6.5 for a career, so he is on pace to shatter that. If you look at this game against how they played Patrick Mahomes, who is incredibly mobile and can improvise so much, it was Kalijah Cansey and Vita Vea that got the bulk of the pressure on him and got the bulk of the sacks on him. So that's going to be interesting to see if, yeah, you switch it up now against a guy where you have seen Brian Flores have a lot of success against him, and it was not only bringing pressure from that interior, but it was getting a bunch of different guys involved, and it was a very blitz-heavy game plan. So is that going to matter? And then specifically with this Bucs defense, something they have not been doing well this season is 3rd and 4th down in particular. This is courtesy of Greg Auman, actually, my coworker who is on the Tampa Bay beat. Shout out Greg. They've already given up 14 4th down conversions this season, which puts them on pace for 26, which is easily the most allowed by any team in any season in NFL history. That is not a record you want to break. That is not a record you want to be on pace for. That is something that is going to keep these guys on the field, and it's something that the Niners aren't going to be afraid to do either if it comes to those 4th and short situations with how well they run the ball. So this conversion rate of 74% on 4th down, which is the 4th highest in the league right now, not good. That cannot be a trend that continues. Can you get your defense off the field and keep this offense, in particular, if it has Christian McCaffrey, off the field as well?
I think Baker Mayfield is going to come out slinging in this game. Like I don't necessarily look at not having Mike Evans and Chris Godwin as a deterrent from him doing that. Obviously, you shouted out Cade Otton there, but I think Sterling Shepard had a really good showing, certainly on Monday Night Football as well. We know Rachaad White can get involved in the passing game. Trey Palmer was a little bit quieter of a night for him, but you're getting some of those younger guys involved in the offense. I know just overall, it's hard to pass the football when your top 2 wide receivers, especially one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL, both go down. It's not ideal, but I still think that Mayfield is going to, keep them in the hunt. But the reason why I brought that up is because my plus factor is also sort of a negative about the Buccaneers, because if they don't raise their defensive floor,
right,
whatever Mayfield's going to do, I just don't think that it's necessarily going to be enough. You look specifically, my plus factor is George Kittle and how the Buccaneers linebackers are going to cover him, because right now, George Kittle, 1st in PFF grade amongst tight ends, 2nd in receiving yards, 1st in receiving touchdowns, tied for 2nd in catches, 1st in catches of 15 or more yards for tight ends. I mean, this dude is at the very top. He's a top 3 tight end in almost every single category that you are going to measure. He's going up against a Buccaneers linebacker group that in coverage is bottom 5 in total coverage grade, EPA per pass allowed, and receiving yards allowed to tight ends this season. It is a true elite strength on terrible weakness for the Buccaneers. And so I wanted to make sure that I pointed out, hey, if I think that Baker Mayfield's going to have you in it. I don't think that he's going to be an issue in this game. I think they're going to be able to run the ball decently well, because the Niners haven't been great at run defense so far this season. So I think that the offense isn't going to be terrible for Tampa Bay, but the floor of their weaknesses on defense have to be much better than what they have been recently, specifically against tight ends. I mean, Kelsey went off against them this past week.
What Travis Kelce was able to do and how the Chiefs attacked them that way.
If you let Kittle go off for over 100 yards, I mean, it's just going to make things way too easy for a Niners and Shanahan offense that really knows how to move the ball. So I think that that's a major plus factor here. It's got to be much better from those Bucs linebackers specifically when covering George Kittle. Maybe it involves, you getting your safeties a lot more involved on how you're trying to cover these tight ends. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but it's got to be a lot better than what it has been recently.